So I'll call back to meeting the open session for the U.S. Chess Executive Board meeting. It's March 17th. It's about 9:20 a.m. And we have been in closed session for most of Saturday, and we have a number of motions coming out of closed session. Mr. Secretary, would you start with the first motion?
Yes, there are, Mr. President, there are 13 motions emerging from the closed session on Saturday and earlier this morning. The first motion was made by President Bauer. Effective March 16th, 2024, the Executive Board moves to appoint Renee Bartlett to the position of Executive Director, United States Chess Federation.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. For terms of discussion, I will note for those that are listening along that we have been through an extensive process for selecting the new executive director. We advertised the position in a number of places and had over 50 responses with their with cover letters, resumes, and references. We then narrowed that down to 17 individuals that we split into two-member executive board member teams and did Zoom interviews for about an hour, each of those 16. We then narrowed it further to 4 candidates who we interviewed in person on Friday, March 15th, for about an hour to an hour and a half each. And after that process, I think the board was unanimous in its determination that Renee Bartlett, who had been our interim executive director, would be our choice. We're very pleased that she is willing to take that position and confident that she's going to do a great job for US Chess. Is there any further discussion? See none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Renee, congratulations. We're really pleased to have you as our new executive director.
Thank you.
Next motion.
Yes, Mr. President, the next motion is addressing one of the delegates' motions from our annual meeting last year. And that is specifically delegates motion 23-35, which is about avoiding duplicate US chess identification numbers. The motion is as follows. In support of delegates motion 23-35, avoiding duplicate US chess IDs, the executive board moves to establish a working group consisting of Vice President Kevin Pryor and executive board members Leila Decan, David Hayter, and Mike Hoppower and Lakshmana Viswanath to work with the office and the website development team.
We've heard the motion. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 8-0. Next motion.
This is another one, Mr. President, in support of another of a delegate's motion from the annual meeting. In support of delegates motion 23-49, establishing the DC State Chapter Committee, the executive board moves to convene a special delegates meeting on June 1st, 2024, to hear the report prepared by the committee formed by the delegates motion. Meeting materials provided to the delegates for this special meeting will include the report prepared by the committee, enabling the delegates to take further action as appropriate regarding the new state chapter.
And on this particular motion, Vice President Kevin Pryor has been very involved with this process, which was established by the delegates at last year's annual meeting and is in line with what the delegates intended, which was for a DC chapter to be presented to the delegates by May 1st. And this aligns with that. Kevin, do you want to make any other comments related to that?
Just in following up with the people who are a part of the committee, we are on track to meet the timeline specified.
And from my perspective, I thank you for your and the committee's hard work on this, because I know it's been a lot of work, and it's, it's an issue that's really important for US Chess and for our DC chess players. And I'm hopeful that we will, at the special delegates meeting, be able to move forward, establish an organization that will represent those players and their interests in US chess.
I believe so.
Any other discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 8-0.
Mr. President, our fifth motion this morning is, I'm sorry, the fourth motion this morning is that the executive board moves to remove effective April 30th, 2024, the temporary change to US Chess Grand Prix rules implemented during the COVID-19 pandemic and to return to previous Grand Prix requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. This relates to the fact that during the pandemic, there was concern about the based on prizes requirements for Grand Prix tournaments, and the executive board lifted those requirements and said that we would as a board revisit it. And this seems to be the appropriate time. You know, tournament play has resumed and thrived in terms of over the board play, and we no longer believe that these requirements, relaxing those requirements are necessary. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 8-0.
Mr. President, the next motion, the executive board moves to allow tournaments limited to seniors, juniors, women, or college students to be eligible for the US Chess Federation Grand Prix, provided they satisfy the other Grand Prix requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. This is another instance where we had in place this kind of exception to the Grand Prix rules and had not noticed that we basically there was an ending date. And this has been going on. There are a lot of tournaments that qualify for it. We believe it is useful for these types of events, and we're simply removing any time limit on them. So this will be in place unless another executive board wishes to revisit it. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 8-0.
The next motion, the executive board moves to approve the certificate of incumbency requested by the estate of Bernard Goodman.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign, motion passes 8-0.
The next motion is the executive board moves that the top woman finisher in the US Senior Open, using tie breaks if necessary, shall receive an invitation to the US Women's Senior Championship beginning in 2024.
And this is an issue where, you know, we already have a situation where the top finisher in the US Open qualifies for the US Championship. We're hopeful a way to increase the number of senior women's players that may play in this particular event, may revisit it in the future as it relates to this or other tournaments that offer an automatic qualifier. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 8-0.
Our next motion, the executive board moves to adopt a paid family leave policy for its employees.
In terms of, there has been a family leaves policy that has been developed by the office, it's presented to us, it's been reviewed by council. This is certainly what we believe is a necessary and appropriate policy to have for our staff. And it will provide for some paid leave up to 4 weeks, I believe, in a year under the terms of the policy. And one of the things that we have known is that over the years, our staff has shouldered some of the burden of getting US Chess's finances into a better place. And we have worked now to get them back to what we think is kind of a best practices place for a nonprofit organization. And I think we believe that this is another one of those steps in the right direction. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 8-0.
Our next motion, the executive board moves to place a flag on the official record of former US Chess member Logan Moore, US Chess ID number 30203399, to prohibit his ability to renew his membership or otherwise rejoin US Chess until such time as he is cleared of the criminal charges against him.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion passes 8-0.
The next motion, the executive board moves to reappoint David Hayter as the USA Chess Federation delegate to FIDE. The term of this appointment is through the end of the 2026 FIDE Olympiad.
David has been serving in this role recently, and we need to renew that. And this will take him through the Olympiad, which will allow for continuity in terms of our relationships with FIDE. David, did you want to say anything about that?
Thank you for the opportunity to serve, and I welcome the opportunity to continue to serve the Federation.
Well, we appreciate that. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Do you want to say no?
I'll abstain. I'll abstain.
Okay, David Hayter abstains, so the vote is 7-0 with one abstention.
So recorded. The next motion, the executive board moves to establish parity in the appearance fees offered to let me start that again. The executive board moves to establish parity in the appearance fees offered to the open and women's teams officially representing the United States in the Senior World Team Championship and the Senior Women's World Team Championship. The level of funding shall be set by the executive board annually.
So in discussion, I would say that I think parity is a good thing here. It's certainly the way that we're seeking to treat our teams. They're both very teams that are filled with people that are of high skill for their particular class, age, whatever. So I think this is a good move by US Chess. Is there any other discussion?
The Women's Committee very much appreciates the support of the board on this.
Appreciate that. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 8-0.
The next motion is related to the previous motion. The executive board moves to provide a total of $15,000 in appearance fees to the open official representative team 50+, or teams 50+ and 65+, and $15,000 in support to the women's official representative team 50+, or teams 50+ and 65+, for the 2024 World Senior Team Championships.
I would say that this is for appearance fees only, and if there are other, there's other support that's offered by the office, by the US Chess, I assume that it would match with our previous motion, which is parity. Other discussion?
I'm saying again, the Women's Committee is very appreciative, as is the BEI committee, of the support of the board on this.
So again, this is seeking to establish parity in how we treat appearance fees, and I think we'll also extend to other support that's offered to these two teams. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes 8-0.
Mr. President, the final motion is related to the United States Virgin Islands. Perhaps that's something you'd like to say in the beginning.
Sure. So we have had a situation, the United States Virgin Islands, while US territory, is a separate federation under FIDE. And there have been instances where organizers, US organizers have wanted to hold tournaments in the US Virgin Islands that would be US separated. We were under the impression, based on counsel from our FIDE representative, in this case, Alan Priest, that that was acceptable if they were not FIDE rated, that we did not need permission from the US Virgin Islands Chess Federation to hold those events. US Chess Virgin Islands felt differently, appealed to FIDE. Mike Hoffpower sought to, as our representative, sought to mediate an agreement with the US Virgin Islands Chess Federation. We were not able to do so. At that time, we were under the impression, several of us that were on the board, that the communication had been provided to US chess organizers and tournament directors that they could not hold tournaments in the US Virgin Islands without the express permission of the US Virgin Islands Chess Federation. That creates real administrative issues for the office, because it's impossible to know if that permission has been received before those tournaments are, for example, listed in Chess Life or even when they go to be rated. So we have reached the conclusion that the only way that we could deal with this at this current time, and there is currently some disagreement as to who is the official federation representing the US Virgin Islands. Until that's all resolved by FIDE, we simply can't have US chess rated tournaments held in the US Virgin Islands. Any other discussion? Mike, I know you were very involved in, trying to work this out in the past.
Yeah, well, it was just disappointing that the leadership at that time of the US Virgin Islands was unwilling to make any accommodations whatsoever. So they wanted absolutely no US chess rated tournaments to ever be held there.
Yeah, so we'll see. This is certainly something that I believe I would revisit, and I think the rest of the board feels the same way. If the leadership issues are resolved and if the leadership of the US Virgin Islands Chess Federation is interested in having US chess rated events in the US Virgin Islands. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
But we gotta read the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, didn't you read the
Read
motion?
the motion.
I'm sorry, take that back.
Yeah, one other thing I will say, we do routinely get US Virgin Island players playing in tournaments based in the US, especially in our scholastics and our upcoming high school scholastics, there's at least 10 that are entered into the tournament. So they do participate in our, events based here in the United States or outside of the Virgin Islands. The motion reads as follows. The executive board moves to suspend indefinitely the ability of US chess tournament directors and affiliates to advertise or organize US chess rated tournaments to be held or hosted in the US Virgin Islands. This policy shall be reviewed annually or when necessary for continuation, change, or removal.
Thank you for reading the motion before we voted on it. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, again, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose. Motion passes 8-0. Does that dispose of the motions, Mr. Secretary?
It does, Mr. President.
As you can tell, we had a lot of issues that came before us for discussion, and I appreciate the energy and effort that the board has put into this. We normally meet on Saturday and Sunday. We also met on Friday to have the in-person interviews for the executive director. So this was a fairly lengthy time commitment by all the members of the board who all have a lot of other time commitments as well. And I really appreciate that effort has been put into this weekend. Is there any other comments that anybody wants to make? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And then seconded, moved and seconded, all in favor, discussion, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed, we are adjourned.